ordinance 1-200. A, regular meeting. The purpose of regular business meeting is for the Board of County Commissioners to conduct the business of Bonner County publicly. Regular business meetings do not constitute public hearings wherein the public has the right to be heard on every agendized item. However, at the discretion of the chair, everyone may be afforded an opportunity to speak on a particular issue, if recognized by the chair. Any unrecognized comment or disruptive behavior will be grounds for removal from the board meeting by the chair and may subject that person being removed to criminal prosecution according to the law. It is 9:02. I'll recess this meeting till 10 o'clock.
So can I challenge the decision
You
of the
can
chair?
challenge it, but we're recessed. Thank you.
So
That's
the,
bullshit.
the comment period is not part of the agenda. It's actually before the agenda. And so I will again remain available to have discussion with the community as duly noticed. Although that ordinance was read, legal has given counsel to this Board of Commissioners that our ordinance implies that we allow the community to actively participate in a meaningful way in the conduct of our business. And this particular ordinance being used will only address, as he stated, each individual item, but our public comment section comes before that, and it's 60 minutes straight, and there's nothing that he stated that removes that. So at this time, if the public has comments, I would encourage you to make those comments. I do understand that there's frustration over the way in which this continues to happen, but any comments from the public regarding the business of Bonner County? I know there's people, the list was put out for people to sign up to make comments, but I'm since Commissioner Omodt stayed, I would say address questions and concerns to him as well.
I will not be answering questions. I will be complying with the ordinance. And I will make my report. I sat back down because I didn't want to be rude while you were speaking.
Okay, thank you.
Asa, I just want to thank you for this morning's meeting and for the future morning's meetings because it's very informative. I didn't know a lot of that stuff about solid waste, so I appreciate what you're doing for us.
You're welcome. I learned a lot of stuff too, just talking to Bob, and it's important for them to showcase what our individual departments are working on so that we know before the project is in Wayne, it's on the ballot. And so I encourage everybody to take part in that because people are coming here a little bit early. Jason came early to set up the room for us so that it could be Zoom. Miss Diane.
Yeah, Luke walked up to my husband before the meeting and said, why don't we have a cup of coffee and talk? Well, you know what, if he can't meet us in a public and official manner, we'll choke on coffee before we have coffee with him.
Okay. If we use the microphone because we are still Zooming, or did you shut it off?
It's because of the meeting. It is put in recess, and so I've always.
It's fine. I understand the rock and a hard spot.
Yeah,
I'm recording. I'll get it up later today.
That's fine, yeah, so the business meeting, when it does go into recess, I have to mute it. It's always been like that. So
We get it.
Mute, recess.
It's
We
okay.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
So Asia, just Rick Kramer for the record, and I would just really like to thank you for your courage and your wisdom and your willingness to continue to inform us, the public, what is going on in our county. And it takes a tremendous amount of courage to put up with these two clowns every day. And I really admire you and thank you.
Well, thank you guys too, though. It works because you guys show up and you're making your presence known. If the people don't show up, then our voices are muted. And so it really, it's a two-way street. We have to keep coming up and putting the pressure on the elected officials in their capacity to represent us and to make sure we give them the appropriate definition of what is representation. Mr. Domke.
Good morning, Commissioner Williams. Thank you for continuing.
You don't need to talk in the microphone because.
Oh, that's right, there is.
Just talk loud so my mic can pick you up. Thank
She's
you.
recording you though, right?
Yes.
Unfortunately, since Commissioner Bradshaw isn't here, I'll send this verse to him, but I feel the need to read. Out of the scripture, Romans chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. You therefore have no excuse, you who pass judgment on someone else. For whatever point you judge another, you condemn yourself, because you who pass judgment do the same things. Now we know that God's judgment against those who do such things is based on truth. So when you, a mere human being, pass judgment on them and yet do the same things, do you think you will escape God's judgment? Or do you show contempt for the riches of his kindness, forbearance, and patience, not realizing that God's kindness is intended to lead you to repentance? Again, that's from Romans chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. Commissioner Bradshaw, if you hear me, I ask that you will have a contrite heart and proceed with repentance.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Question, is the person not recording this breaking the ordinance?
No, because the ordinance, what he cited in ordinance has to do with, in this county, when it comes to the business item, we do first, second, public comment. That's been the tradition of the county. The ordinance is referencing that period of time. What we are here for from 9 to 10 is actually something we voted on to give a public comment section where the public could ask questions. So what he read does not impact this section at all. You would actually need to vote and remove it because we vote to place it. The other aspect is legal counsel has identified that in Bonner County, we have always given the people an opportunity to speak. And that their belief was that we need to review the ordinance itself, because if you continue to read that ordinance, it discusses being recognized by the chair. Lewis Marshall and I had the conversation about that, and his comment was to be recognized was the form of conducting a meeting, not a permission to be a participant in public comment.
Then who do we report this and yet last week's incidents to? Because I keep emailing the prosecuting attorney and I get no response. I've also been emailing the attorney general with no response.
This should go to the attorney general with respect to open meeting review. And
Okay.
I did specifically ask Lewis Marshall, what is the recourse of the people? Because when the people ask me, I say, you're the supervisor of a commissioner. But for the people to know that when it's not working, you have to reach out specifically citing something. And so in this case, you would be asking the attorney general to review the conduct of the business meeting as it's occurring on these last two events.
I have been. Okay, I'll try to get more people to do that too.
You can do it in writing, and you actually get a case that they must make a decision on.
I must need to be the squeaky wheel then.
Squeak on.
Many of us are. Asia, Wayne Martin. For those of you that don't know me, haha. I want to thank you very much for this morning. I want to thank you for having the courage and the fortitude for dealing with your fellow commissioners. Do know that the majority, I believe, of the citizens of the county do believe in you and support you, even though they may not be here in person. I would like to see a lot more people here in the room filled. Please continue to stand up and do what you feel is right, not just for yourself, but for the county and the citizens of the county, which I believe that you have been doing. And those that aren't here, those that were on Zoom, we're here, we want to be heard and all, and unfortunately, the only one that gets to hear, the questions are you.
And I think that's where the people need to take to other methods, not just this meeting, but reaching out to your newspapers to advertise what your issues and concerns are with respect to government, so that it gets the attention it needs to require the change that you need to demand of local government. I think it really does. Dorothy Moon gave a discussion, an interview of why local elections are so important, and you're living why local elections are so important right now, because all I can do is sit here, I can't make someone stay. But local election focus needs to we are the example of why who sits at this table matters more in some regards than who your senator is. Senator is 90 days. This is 365 days. A decision made today impacts you instantly. And we need to recognize that impact and decide, are we really vetting people, not just for what they believe, but what they're actually proven to stand on? Because in some regards, I think people are feeling frustrated because people might not be what we thought that they were. And you're starting to see that kind of mask be peeled away. But as we go into a period of, we have a whole lot of local elections coming up. I have a laundry list actually that I brought of elections for November 2023. And people need to know that if you don't like this, it starts actually at your city level. This is a 2-page of people that we need to find to run for office that are committed to representing the people. And we need to tell people what representing means, not have that told to us. Yes, sir. The microphone doesn't work, so y'all don't need to line up.
Well, I've got a loud enough voice, so I don't need a
Okay.
microphone. My name's Dan Welly. A few moments ago, before the meeting, Luke came over and introduced himself to me and asked if he'd care to share a cup of coffee with him, and then I could voice my concerns. I told him that when the time came, I would voice my concerns, and he would know it. Unfortunately, he's not here. That's the problem. They are unwilling to answer questions. They are unwilling to listen to the voice of the people and to hear our concerns. That is not leadership. I've seen some poor leadership in my time. This is on par with the very worst of poor leadership. And it's unfortunate that we have one commissioner that has to stand up to the bad part of the leadership and deal with it. To you, I give you my thanks.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
No, I don't know which one of y'all was there first.
We've created a line for order.
Yeah.
I just want to say, for the public comment section, we can challenge the law, the code, whether it's at the prosecutor's office or the attorney general's level. And we can also do it at Central Committee through the Republican, Central Committee. We have rules, for being a Republican, and the committee is in process on activating those rules. And I asked Luke on the way out if he had received the petition yet, and he said he had not. Or he asked what the petition was, which told me he has not received it. But he will be receiving it before next Monday, or this coming Monday. And that petition will be to,
He's trying to talk to you guys. but-
yeah, that petition will be to bring them to accountability at the Republican Party level, which might not meet the total legal code or ordinance level, but it is an opportunity for us to execute leverage, and that is in process. And the committee is, I'm sure, going to follow it through to its entirety. So, the letters to the Attorney General, the county prosecutor, if they're not satisfying you, there is another method underway. And if you come to the Central Committee meetings on every third Tuesday night at 6:30 above Selkirk Glass, you will see what's going on. In this case, the petition is going to invite each one of them to our September meeting, September 19th meeting, to answer for what they're doing right now, what they did a week or two ago, and what they're doing every week here on out, as long as they don't show up. So you'll see that we are gonna hold them accountable. And so I just wanted to let you know, that's another avenue that is being done. And the 19th, state rules say you have to do certain things. And I forgot to mail it to the chairman. I mailed it to all the participants, but I forgot to mail it to the chairman. And I lost 30 days in that process. So unfortunately, the intent is there. It will get done. It's just gonna be somewhat delayed. Dan, day, time, and location again for the? Every Tuesday night, every third Tuesday night at 6:30 PM at the Ponderay Event Center, which is above Selkirk Glass. That's the.
Ponderay Event Center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the
Okay.
next meeting is this Tuesday, the 18th.
Tuesday the 18th, the petition will be discussed. I
asked if anyone wanted to, you know, contact me. My email is writeindanrose, WRITEINDANROSE @gmail.com. If you write me, I'll send you the copy of that, but it'll be it's already been initiated, but it'll most likely make an agenda item this month.
Dan, most people don't know what the petition is for. What is it that you're actually petitioning? Can you explain what you're petitioning?
Yeah, so it's a newly created state rule, Rule 20 at Idaho GOP rules. So if you go to idahogop.org, go down to rules, number 20 is what it is. Basically, it is, in the easiest terms, it's removal of the R from their ability to campaign. Now, it doesn't actually, I think, take away the R. There's a technical stuff that the state GOP is balancing, but it will, in the very least, create a firestorm of the state not recognizing them. State GOP not recognizing them. Okay, anything else?
Any questions on
who's-
that process?
Yeah,
'Cause I
who's
think-
signing that petition? Is that people within that central committee, or is that the public at large?
Yeah,
Is it still out there to be signed? Is it all done?
We had to get 20% of the central committee to sign and activate the petitions. We got about a third without even trying. And that was just to get the process in. And so, that's all that needs to be done. I would like the public to be involved, by, how do we say, stating their agreement to the petition, which would happen at a central committee meeting. It'll probably make the agenda this month. It'll probably be in, how do we say, flux moment, for August. But they'll be invited to be there on the 19th of September. I don't know if either one of them are gonna show up. If they don't show up, case is presented, closed. That's the first item of the removal of the R. There needs to be 2 of those events to actually remove the R. So this would be the first, quote, violation. It would put them on notice, and the margin of error for them to operate against the state rules or the state platform, Idaho GOP platform or rules, now becomes much smaller. And then after that second event, we do the same process, and then they've lost credibility with voters. So it's a 2-step process. This is the first step, and there's time frame requirements and everything else, notice requirements, opportunity to defend. So that's kind of what it is.
If that R gets removed, does that affect their ability to run in the next primary or in the next Republican primary?
Yeah, no, they can run in the technicalities of what they can use. Certainly, they won't be able to use the Idaho GOP logo. Whether they can call themselves Republicans is a matter that I'm not so sure the state's even figured what they can do.
It's important.
Yeah, so at the very least, the claim can always be made that the state has, quote, taken their R away, whether they actually take it away or not. I say, the state has, as a private organization, has the ability to regulate those who fall under our umbrella. And so, if they say, and when this is done, it's posted at the state website that the R, or the recognition of their republicanism, has been removed. That gets published and posted on the state website. So, the state is saying that we are not recognizing you. And all we have to do is put that word out to the voters. The state GOP doesn't recognize them, I don't know why you would.
And I think this was the party's option of trying to hone in people that aren't adhering to the platform, versus people that just, you're all a Republican, that, because we're all ours, to kind of, to deal with that situation. So I think it would be the first time, because it's new. And I think his specific question was about signing a petition. Who gets to sign it, and where do you go to sign it? If that's what I think.
Yeah,
That's
so,
part of it, yeah.
yeah, so the members,
Yeah.
20% of the members,
Yeah.
but I would like the public to sign on by coming to the central committee and voicing their support of that petition.
Okay.
correct me if I'm wrong, but the Republican Central Committee also helps finance the Republican candidates.
Correct.
Would
Let me
this
be
deprive
clear,
them-
it's not that much, it doesn't really finance you,
doesn't-
$400 does
Yeah,
not finance
well,
you, but they
it
do
would deprive them
donate
of that
some.
money.
What's that?
It would deprive them of that money.
Surely.
Well, just to be clear though, not, if they endorse you, they give you money. If they did not endorse you, they don't give you money.
But with the taking of
Yeah.
the ROA, there would be no way that that would happen.
Right.
There'll be no way that they get on our mailing list with
Yeah.
the, how do we say, preferred vote, the slate card. That would not happen.
Which is beneficial to a candidate to be on the slate card, cause it's a mass mailing. That has value to it.
Interesting, it's good, the concept here, but you're not saying that, an individual can't run as a Republican if they wish to do so, correct?
I don't know what the legal technicalities are about, how do we say, running as a Republican versus using, anything that the state party would own. So I think
It would seem to me
Republican has,
I know.
that it would be a violation of the individual's First Amendment to register as an R and be a candidate as an R. I mean, we're talking about the First Amendment here at this meeting. In that particular instance of an individual's right to his First Amendment, her First Amendment, it would seem to me that that would be a pretty clear violation of one's First Amendment right to register as an R, a D, an L. Am I correct?
well, state code says you have to, how do you say, complete certain elements of eligibility. And so, in order to even be on the ballot, you have to register, by one of the major parties. So code kind of dictates that, and that's why I said there's a technical legal issue here. I would assume state, Idaho GOP has, walked down this path. I'm just saying, from the, how do we say, proliferary level, even if they are able to run as a Republican in, quote, the party has, the ability to manage its umbrella. And in that sense, the party is, through the central committee, up to the state level, the party is saying, we disagree with who you are.
I just wanted to clarify in statute, you can't stop someone from registering Republican or running in the primary. I think from the summer meeting for the Idaho GOP, they don't have to endorse you and they don't have to let you be on their literature. So like the two individuals that left, they can still register to be Republican and Republican primary, but then the rest of us can determine if we think they're actually following the platform or not.
Right, and I believe that
Per
aligns,
statute, yeah.
that aligns with
Yeah.
his, which is mine, of that legal technicality of
Yeah.
how much authority we actually have.
And I
Correct.
think it trickles down to then what does your individual central committees do to give recognition to those who they've identified as not adhering to that platform? And I think that's the level that meets that expectation of, yeah, you have the right to register, but based on this, we have reviewed your conduct and it's not in alignment, and then pushing that education to the community. But you wouldn't be able to stop them from registering as an R. I don't think that's the goal. It's the identification of adhering to a platform.
And being recognized by the local Republican Party, which we would be saying we don't recognize.
And to bolster the idea of your brand. Your party is a brand, and if people aren't representing the brand the way that you want them to, you have to be able to address it. And this was, I think, the best case kind of scenario for addressing the issue. Because I think Rhino has been used so much that the question then is, well, then what do you do? You've labeled these people, but what do you do after you've identified they're not in alignment? But I think it pushes why more of our public have to be involved in our central committees, so that your opinion on these people is also heard.
I also did a document request on, I was threatened to be trespassed from one of the meetings months ago. And commissioners sought legal counsel for it. And I sought the document request, and I got it. And I don't know if you want to read that at some point. I will email it to you if anybody writes me. but that talked about public comment. There was a lot of, how do we say, counsel on that issue and where the violations would be occurring. I believe that they've already established those violations, and the petition is based in part on that legal advice that they have already received. So I think it's just, it's public record, and I think, you know, if anybody wants it, and I don't know if you wanna.
I haven't seen it, cause I did ask for it, so you can email it to me.
I'll email too. So, that's all I have. I don't wanna take anyone else's time.
What time again is that meeting, next Tuesday night?
This coming Tuesday, 6:30 PM, Fondray Event Center.
Thank you.
What kind of bacteria is coming up here now? I told him I'd like to be a virus, quicker to spread, harder to kill, but.
Exactly. Exactly.
I don't know about you all, but,
You're gonna have to project because we have people cupping their ears back there.
I don't know about you all, but I really don't like politics that involves name calling. And before I go any further, let me just thank you again publicly, and I need to do it every time, for all that you do, your bravery, your integrity, your dedication to transparency. When I heard that public comment was gonna be cut off, and especially after our chairman was quoted in a publication calling us bacteria, I thought that what I could do is hold up some signs during the meeting. Here's one: bacteria, simply idiotic. Calling us bacteria is one of the lowest forms of representation. If that guy doesn't get recalled, anyway. I thought it was particularly significant that he was calling us bacteria when he and Luke had been rebuked by their own party. Like, we're the bacteria and you get rebuked by your party? It's madness. I'm sure that Commissioner Bradshaw and Luke don't like this, but I think it's particularly true. Cowards suppress speech.
That's a good one.
And this is gonna be one that, you know, until, I guess there's a violation and I'm gonna be arrested if I hold up signs, we'll see. But I think these two are acting like third world dictators. When I get up and make a comment about, you know, the need to protect habitat and zoning regulations that, you know, preserve the species that have co-evolved over millions of years, I guess I'm a rhino Republican in that I'm an environmentalist, but I'm a clear conservative Republican. And for these two to call me, you know, a socialist, or to suggest that I need to go to a third world country, it really infuriates me. And I guarantee you one thing, I've got my first undergraduate degree is in microbiology. I guarantee you Commissioner Bradshaw can't name a single bacteria. Idiot.
Jennifer Kramer, I was going to ask you how specific things we can do to help with this situation. I obviously I do pray for you and for all of three of you. I heard we can write to the AG, we can write to the prosecuting attorney, we can show up to the BCRCC meetings. What else can we do?
I think letters to the editor to publicize what it is that's happening from the perspective of the people, because the editors understand what my position is and it becomes redundant. But when people continue to show up, which I've said it more than once, some of this feels like just an attempt to wear down the people's desire to come because you're being pushed out of being involved. But it's now when you have to actually increase participation, what it is that we're doing. But reaching out to the B and asking them, why aren't you here covering the fact that the commissioners are invoking a rule to not allow what they actually voted on in a hearing or a meeting to give people the right to have dialogue? So that our local media also has to transition into talking about what matters to the people. because when the Bonner Bee or Sandpoint reader starts showing up and actually reporting what the people want to see in their literature, it also helps to shape that discussion in the community. It's not the manipulation of people. This is an open violation of, we noticed public comment. They actually took the time to bring the binder down for us to sign into it, only to know that they were going to leave. That doesn't make any sense. It's not in line with what representation is. And we need to make that definition clearly known, not just for us that are sitting. We have elections coming up. We need the next people that run to understand a demand for representation requires you to listen to not what you agree with, but the things you don't like. Free speech is not intended only for what makes me feel good. It's actually supposed to make it available for me to say what you don't like, because it's during that discourse that we actually can find that common ground. And what we've seen here, and this is my opinion, the last time we had public comment, it was when the public provided their opinion on whether or not the Board of Commissioners should be involved in assessing work at the time of separation and providing payments. That was the last time we spoke. And the people came out in droves to give their public opinion. It wasn't a negative presentation. There wasn't any screaming and yelling. The very next meeting is when public comment was removed. And I did put to the attorney, it appears as if this is a retaliation because people spoke up against something that was trying to be pushed through. And if you look at kind of that dynamic, it's twofold. There was an executive session that occurred that should not have occurred that you weren't aware with, and when it was exposed, then you are no longer allowed to speak. That's a story that our paper should be covering on behalf of Bonner County residents, because it's a problem. That's not the biggest issue that's going to come up for county commissioners. But if that is what yanks your ability to speak at local government, our problem is bigger. Because in my opinion, we need to be speaking, because you cannot represent me if you did not listen to me. And it doesn't mean you agree with me, and I don't think everybody agrees with me. It means that I sit here to hear it, and I'm going to evaluate it, and I can give you a reasonable, educated response to an issue that you brought up, like, should we build government over a sticker, or do we hold ourselves more accountable? That's a reasonable discourse. And that's why I thought the idea of the 8 o'clock chat time to discuss what's important to the people is important if you can't do it at this business meeting. And then in this session, rules only work so long as we follow them. And what we've witnessed as Bonner County residents is our elected officials are not following the rules that we lay out. And that's a problem for us as people, regardless of what your position in the community is. So we need to advertise it, not just from those that are running or wanting to run or are elected, but from the people to say, this is ridiculous. And I noticed that we had, on the agenda that we didn't finish last week, there were 2 items there that we didn't even discuss, and I'm curious as to where they are. We had RV park on there again. That the grant cancellation didn't mean that we can't actually ask for it again. There were some errors of correction that the letter cited. Immediately we saw under Commissioner Omod's name that we were going to discuss that item. Well, we didn't discuss it, and it's not on this agenda. I would like to know, what are we working on with respect to that? And we can only do that if we sit and talk to the people. I tell people email, and the emails are coming back saying, I received your email without an answer. That's not okay. We have to expose that as people, not just Asia saying it, but the people saying it, and then demanding that the reporters in our community say something, because it's damaging to our community. We should be working on bigger things that are headed our direction, not why are we not having an open discussion. And it shouldn't be that we're pitting county employees against elected officials, because I see it both ways. Yes, technology took the instruction of he ended the meeting, but my instruction, it can't be met. And so I give in to the let's have a better workplace. But when I look at it objectively, it's actually no. Mine is agendized for open public dialogue right now, and what he did cannot change that because it's not part of the meeting. We didn't change the agenda. But what can I do other than tell the people we have to support county people also? So it's a difficult, which is why I want to make sure as county employees come to tell us what they're working on, to provide that information, that we recognize that and thank them, because the dynamic in this building is toxic. Who you are cited as you went to Asia's chat time. I mean, that's gonna happen. And we have to expect that, and when that happens, we have to support somebody like Bob who agreed, because as some of you know, people asked who was the one who dialed 911 last week. Well, Bradshaw tasked Bob with doing that, and Bob was stuck in a hard spot of making that phone call. And that's not his opinion of what we were doing, it was a commissioner told me to do something and I listened. So he is in a tough spot on both directions, because yes, he dialed 911, but he also came and offered information. My focus is, after we get through the irritation, that we stop allowing those commissioners that are not willing to participate to change what our message is, because we have real work that we need to work on, which is we're not fixing that behavior in this meeting. So what do we need to discuss as a community for Bonner County to move forward in the direction that the people want to move in? Because we have a lot going on in our county right now. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but it's pivotal that we be involved.
All right, thank you. And I echo all the comments, appreciate your
No worries.
dedication, integrity, support of us, et cetera, so
Yes.
thank you.
You got a line back there now, right?
Oh, I do.
They restarted.
Good morning, Asia. I'll
morning.
sit over here because I'm talking to them as well as you.
There you go.
Number one, I am just elated that I live in South Bonner County and she is our elected official. So articulate, well-spoken, and, you know, I'm what Boise folks like to call a cow that invaded Idaho, you know, California, Oregon, and Washington. But I didn't invade this place. I moved here because it was conservative, Republican, beautiful, friendly people. And I love living here. And, you know, honestly, I discovered after getting up here that R did not necessarily represent conservative Christian values, people who love nature. I love nature. The thing is that here we have the process of our nation in play. And being a native Californian because of the United States Navy, I grew up as a stranger in a strange land. Now I'm at home. And it's wonderful to have a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. I ignored politics in California because it was useless. It was a great place being a child, but it got horrible. And I see some of the patterns happening here that I saw happening there. And I'm a voice in the wilderness saying, repent, let's not let it go like that. You know, and this lady right here is a voice for us. And you are the tip of the iceberg, making a difference here. Now, other people don't like to hear what we have to say, but we're actually representing other people. Now, I got involved in the Bonner County School.
West Bonner County School District.
Thank you very much. And it's a mess. We have good conservatives on the school board now that got a good conservative superintendent, and the plan is to have Priest River Schools be the first classical education public schools in the nation. That is huge, because right now they are at the bottom of the test scores of what's going on, so the kids are not getting educated. That school district is famous for bullies. I know people that went to school there that left the public school because of the bullying that's going on in the public schools. The problem is systemic. We have to reach the children to educate them properly to be American citizens. And the process that's going on here is indicative of what's going on all over this country. But we have to be firm and get involved. There's two conservatives that are being recalled right now that I know of, the chairman and another lady, and you got information on them, okay? We need to get people involved in those little districts, those zones, because the voters in that zone is either going to have conservative values, American values, Idaho values with the new school board, or they're going to vote them out, and then we're going to have...
Go back to lowest ratings in the state.
I'm sorry, what?
the lowest test scores in the state.
Go back to, and that's
The
the whole reason.
continuation of the lowest test scores in the state.
Exactly. We need to encourage those that we know that live in Priest River, in those two districts in particular, to go out, knock on doors, and talk to people about it, all right? Thank you very much for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you. You got another Bible verse?
No, not this time.
What?
I mean, you can never have too many, but, I have what I think is a point of order question, and I might be off base, but I've noticed in numerous meetings, Commissioner Omodt in particular, when you're trying to deliberate over an issue and offer a point of view for discussion and consideration, or even just informational, he likes to call the question. Robert's Rules of Order, which have not been adopted by our county or this board. But we do actually have code, county code about how to conduct the meetings. And so it states in the county code about conduct of meetings, that after all persons recognized by the chair have been considered, and any additional comments that may have come from the commissioners, then the chair shall call for the vote at the conclusion of the deliberation. So I'm just wondering, to help prevent, hopefully, if they'll follow the rules, but to help prevent that inappropriate action in the future, when a commissioner calls the question, not allowing for another commissioner to complete their time of deliberation, can you call a point of order and stop that, because it's not per code?
So the problem with rules are they're only as good as a person that will follow them. And so there's a reason that some days we're going to use Robert's Rules of Orders and others that we're not. And if you watch some of the meetings, what happens is then Commissioner Bradshaw will just say he'll make it okay once he's identified. The problem isn't the rules, it's the people are not following the rules. Because in a perfect world, you would do exactly what legal has advised. You would deliberate, you'd have the discussion, and you'd address your difference in the vote itself, not in the lack of giving information. And if you look at the problems in our county with litigation, that issue is like the core of all of our problems. The fear of discussing so that we don't allow that dialogue is why you lose court hearings, because we didn't generate the record to support the position. And that is similar to what happens here. And the question is, how much do you hold up this meeting when you're not going to actually move the ball down the field any for it? Because at the end of the day, partly of what I'm going to do is during District 2, because you saw last week, he tried to remove District 2 saying there was nothing related to Bonner County. But it's on the agenda today. So if it doesn't get removed, there is nothing that prevents me from saying, is there a person that has a question in the audience of me? And then we're essentially going to have public comment during District 2. So they will have to address that issue of how do you then say that you have the power, because if you recall, the order of this agenda is before we talk about consent agenda. So that was my pivot for no public comment, is I'm just gonna ask, do people have questions? And hopefully people ask questions. But that means the next time, then what are we gonna do? I don't know. And the problem is I can't make them. Do we follow Robert's Rules of Order? Should we adopt it? It would make sense, but the problem is, when you don't want to be transparent, you want to live in that ambiguity, and we are practicing seems to be a better fit for Bonner County, then if we're going to adopt it, now follow it. I don't know why they've chosen that, but again, I don't have the majority vote to change that.
And understood that we have to have people that follow rules for rules to matter. But to establish precedent, legal precedent, might it be valuable when they speak out of order to call a question which does not comply with our county code, to state that point of procedure so that hopefully we can build evidence in time.
Well, I appealed the decision of the chair and they walked out.
Yeah.
That is the process of Robert's
You do a
Rules of
great
Order.
job of calling out when things are done inappropriately. I'm just trying to bring up one more aspect that maybe to try to shut down when Commissioner Omodt inappropriately calls the question, because he doesn't get to choose when to apply Robert's rules, because they're not consistent with county code. So I'm hoping it might be something
And I
useful
think
to
this
build a
is,
stronger case.
and I can definitely do that, and I think on this agenda, there isn't anything that there'll be the call to question on, I think it
Yeah.
will be, stop talking on District 2.
Yeah, okay,
Section,
I just
so-
wanted to see
No.
if there was one more way in which we
We
could
could
try to
try.
hold them accountable to follow the actual established
Yeah.
code.
I could try that and see if that
Thank you.
gets anywhere.
I just wanna make you guys aware, there's another meeting a week from today. It's at the Sandpoint City Council. It's on rezoning the land that we've called the Justice Complex. So, just so you know, that's going on. I believe it's at 4 o'clock, so you have the central committee meeting at 6:30. 4 o'clock is, the decision on the rezoning.
For the fairgrounds.
For the fairground, campground, and then there's, interestingly, another little piece on the south end where the park's at, that they're gonna, a tiny little sliver they're gonna give to the justice thing and rezone it. So I don't know what exactly is going on or how it works. You might go on the,
Is that next Tuesday or this Tuesday?
it's the 18th.
18th.
Okay, good, because the Republican Central is next Tuesday.
Yes,
Good.
and it's
I
the
missed
same,
that.
same day, that was brought up earlier, was the Republican, so this is at 4 o'clock, I believe. So if you wanna look on anything, you can look on the planning and zoning for the city.
Where will it be held?
The Sandpoint City Hall, over by the police station.
And
Just-
people have asked, should you attend, and you should attend, it's a different level of government, and it's still moving an agenda forward to give your input on it. Cause I think a lot of people have questions as to if we rezone it, have we removed the ability to actually expand the Justice Center since we changed that whole tract of land, and how does that actually work? So it is valuable to attend that meeting.
Yes, and I believe that the people should have a voice in this. It's county land, just like Camp Bay, access to the lake, all this kind of stuff should be county opinion, what we want. And it was voted on originally to put it on the ballot. We had a chance to put it on the ballot this spring, but the next week that was rescinded. So again, we need a voice.
Thank you. Dan has a question for you.
Is that a first meeting, hearing, discussion, or is it the decision?
Decision.
I believe it's the decision. I mean, I haven't totally researched it out, but I believe it's the decision. You can go on the Sandpoint site, planning and zoning, and get
Do we know if they had a public hearing already on that issue?
I don't think that they
I
have.
haven't.
See how practiced we are to coming to a microphone even though it's off?
I know.
Go over there. She said go over there.
Okay, when is Raul coming, or his grouping?
So Raul has given a response to Bonner County that says he cannot fix what our problem is. Our problem is not. So our problem of open meeting violation is, that's not the problem. The problem is the behaviors, and the enforcement doesn't come before an attorney general. We did the presentation on public meetings. We know how to do public meetings, but it's, what do you do after you say no, that we did it wrong? You just say correct it and redo it.
So he's not coming for the training thing, remember that we were talking about earlier in the year?
We did a training, and so the question that we started funneling more was, what could he do about open meetings? So we're not, the problem that we started with at the beginning has died down to where now they just pull it off the agenda. But the actual open meeting packet, what do we get out of asking him to come? If you want him to come, he will, but he will not address what our problem is. And they have watched our videos, they're aware of the behaviors. They do understand the issue, but that's a prosecutor issue to educate on. The Attorney General can't do anything about what we're experiencing here. They don't have authority over a commissioner.
Does anybody have that authority?
You guys are the authority, which is where that.
Elections matter.
That's, yeah, that is where coming and showing up and making what's happening visible does matter. Short of committing a crime where it's on paper, Raul can't do anything. He can tell you how it should be, which in watching the sequence of videos coming forward, they have changed the way that they're running the meeting, so.
Could we request that Bill be here at the meeting so that we have a representative from the prosecutor's office?
We can.
Will he?
I did.
Does it help if we ask?
I did ask that, council be present for the meetings, especially given the letter that was written on behalf of what meetings are, but also agreeing that they hadn't actually reviewed all of the meetings. And so one of the hardships on legal is we are down an attorney, and so you have a lot of work being given to one attorney. So that is also a very good conversation to have with Lewis Marshall, because he is not this coming Tuesday, but he's the next Tuesday of Commissioner Chad. So Lewis Marshall, I put the agenda out there to show what we're going to discuss, and that is a topic, and also he's going to discuss the role of the prosecutor's office with the Board of County Commissioners publicly, so that the community can understand what he can do and what he cannot do. Because some people think his function is greater than it is, but then hearing from the community what you expect out of your elected prosecutor. And so that's not, Mike Rosedale is this coming on the 18th, and then his is the last Tuesday of the month. And so that's definitely one to come to, because a lot of the questions come down to litigation and enforcement of rules. There's been advice given. The problem is the attorney gives it, but you still need a commissioner to accept it.
Can I ask one more thing? Or I know he wants to, how much time do I have? Any time or no?
10 minutes?
So if, let's say that you recuse yourself from an issue, a decision, and there's only two that can make a decision, and they can't agree, what happens?
It fails, because it doesn't move forward. If you are one is a yes and one is a no, it doesn't move forward.
That's the end of it, unless it's re-brought to the board?
Well, it depends on what the issue is, but if you have a tie vote, it doesn't pass, it fails.
Thank you.
Well, this might be a little more uncomfortable, but I have a question for you. I'd like a little clarification.
Yeah.
The last meeting where Mr. Bradshaw closed the meeting, and there was no discussion, like Mr. Omodt got up with him and walked out. And I forget what the other part of the question was. It's been there so long. But can we look back at that and see if there was some sort of meeting between these two guys before the meeting?
Careful on your criminal
That-
accusations
that-
there.
that-
It's not an accusation,
Yeah.
it's a question, he has every right to ask it, the two of you walk out of here together, taking a quorum with you, he has every right to ask the question, you're a little sensitive to a question, pal.
So this is the public comment session that Commissioners Omodt and Bradshaw declined to participate with, so I would like to answer the question. So that did come up because it looked as if it was pre-planned, because it should have been something where you weren't sure is how members of the public viewed it. I did submit that inquiry to Lewis Marshall to review what actually took place, because it appeared as if it was something that was already known to have happened, because there wasn't an actual discussion on the board's side of it. There was just an effort to make a statement and to leave. And he hasn't given a response as to how that happened. I did ask him to review the entire meeting, because when you look at the entire meeting, there were so many things that were not in alignment with ordinance and process, that my position was the whole thing needs to be redone. Not just that before the meeting started, this public comment session isn't part of that actual meeting section to even come in and say, I'm deciding that I can't talk, because we voted to have that session before we started the business meeting. And that's a particularly important statement to make, because it wasn't part of the actual business. And Mr. Rose pointed that out when he commented on our ordinance that says our business meeting starts at 9. So whether or not a commissioner had the right, because they are the chair, to end that, I drew a kind of red flag on that. Also, you saw that in that meeting, it ended without actually completing the agenda itself, with a commissioner saying it's done, and then 2 commissioners leaving. So I think that the questions are very good to have on this with the prosecutor when he comes, so that we can have that back and forth. Because like everybody notices, we pull out our books and our ordinances when it favors our position, but we ignore them when we hear what we don't want to hear. And that inconsistency causes a problem within the community and how to actually conduct business as the people. But I did ask for the entire thing to be reviewed.
So the other part of the question that I forgot was, when Mr. Bradshaw told somebody to make the call, it wasn't call 911, it was to make the call, like that was already discussed. There was a conversation about who to call. If I say call, this is who you call.
And so people did bring that up to my attention because they had a concern that the individual that made the call was part of that. And so if you look at other meetings, Commissioner Bradshaw has said make the call in reference to 911. And so the person's statement was they didn't know it was going to happen. They just got a clarification that that's what the person was requesting. He did not dial 911, he dialed the non-emergency line for Sandpoint PD and they came. And then as you saw, because we were duly noticed and doing the business of the county, Sandpoint Police Department didn't take any action. So, it didn't feel as organic as, it should have felt. But that concern, I think, is definitely something to say to the prosecutor. This is how the meeting was conducted. We have some questions about that and see what his take on it is. I know that the idea of just removing public comment was frowned upon, that we need to actually address it in a greater fashion than what we have decided to just say, you cannot speak. So, anybody else? You have like 3 minutes left.
I just want to say, I don't agree with everything everybody says, but it is very important to me to participate in, at least be part of and be heard in our local government. And I just feel so incredibly disrespected, to tears almost, that just the response, walking out, just, there's nothing wrong with just listening to what the people have to say, whether you agree with it or not. But please, show some respect for the people, you know, whether we voted for you or not, and you know what, the people voted for you. Please, just, you know, you don't have to agree with what we say. Just listen to us and let us feel like we've been heard.
Thank you. Anybody else? 2 minutes, you're running the clock down. Nothing.